Thanks, guys. Nice to have you up here. I'll tell you who they are, and they'll tell you exactly a little bit more detail. We've got Jeremy Achin here, the CEO of DataRobot. Nicholas Meric on the end there is CEO of DreamQuark, and of course Brett King. I'm sure you're now all very familiar with the CEO of Moven and much else besides. I guess we'll say you've got your Moven hat on for this panel for now, but maybe also
probably
the
more
AI
the futurist. The author / futurist,
so,
I guess.
We'll kick off as we do with our panels here, just to get a little bit of a better sense of exactly what it is that all of you guys do. Nicolas, if you would like to start.
Yes, so at DreamQuark, basically what we do is that we started with the objective to create a lot of value with artificial intelligence to financial services, so bank, insurance, asset managers, and we identify that there are some pain points, in particular the explainability of these new algorithm, deep learning. Is there anyone in the room that does not know about deep learning? So 3 years ago when I started, I would have seen a lot of arm raised. Now it's much better, and the idea is that we work to provide you with solutions that are really performing, easy to use, and also at the end explainable so that you can work with new GDPR coming live 25th of May. Thank you.
Brett?
So I started before Moven. I started as an author in this space and a technology advisor. Worked with HSBC and Citi and a bunch of others, but started writing about technology's impact on society a few years ago. I run a radio show out of New York called Breaking Banks, which is the largest fintech dedicated radio show podcast audience globally. And then, of course, that led to the formation of Moven as well as a way to sort of explicitly show that. But I'm very, very interested in the intersection of technology and behavior and how that impacts society. So that's where I sit.
Jeremy.
So, Tess.
Yeah.
So I was a data scientist before. I was a data scientist for about 10 years and then started a company to try to automate my job. We started this about five and a half years ago. So for the last 5.5 years, I've been working on automating the job of a data scientist, or automating, creating these AI algorithms. And I think we've been pretty successful. We raised $124 million. We're probably one of the most, the largest and most successful pure AI startups in the world. And fintech is, if I count my customers, fintech is the segment where I have the most customers. If I count by revenue, banking is the segment where we have the most revenue. So, and these two sectors play, obviously, kind of are important to each other. So it's this is AI, and fintech is pretty much 50% of like what I'm thinking about these days.
So you've raised, just very quickly, 124 million. Brett, what has Moven raised?
So far, it's going to be about 80 million by the end of April.
And Nicolas?
So we are French, so what we see is that there is less investment in AI, and this is a pity, I think. So we raised 3 million, but now working to raise many more. And also we have successful customer with our solution, so the market is coming on our solution as well. So
I can do the translation. So 3 million raised in the French market is equal, multiplied by about 20 to get to equivalent. So he's closer to me than it might look.
Thanks for putting that into perspective. I have to say the closest I came to launching an AI startup was losing at chess to deep learning founder Demis Hassapis. Now, I was 7 years old at the time, and I absolutely got trounced by him, which was quite hard for a 7-year-old to take, being beaten by a 5-year-old. But in retrospect, maybe it wasn't so bad after all. But look, AI has promised much, but how much is artificial? How much is intelligence? Can you just give us a sense of what is artificial intelligence doing right now in the world of fintech? What can it be doing? What will it be doing? And what isn't it doing? And what can't it do? And what won't it do? Jeremy, why don't we start with you?
So I think today AI is allowing fintech players that are they're not as constrained as the large financial institutions to very quickly make use of all the information that's available. We see we're seeing a lot of the smaller fintech players that come in all these different markets really create a lot more powerful, models and predictions. When you're lending money or you're in the payment space, or it turns out that being able to predict things like, will this person pay me back, is really important. So to the extent that you can get inside these subpopulations to figure out who are the viable people for us to lend to, I think that's the biggest the impact I've seen from AI in fintech is just the companies that are willing to kind of move fast and take advantage of all the data that's out there. We're seeing get some very, very successful fintech companies across the globe, I'm sure you're aware, by leveraging the data available and leveraging the technology available in AI.
And Brett, I guess you'd put Moven among them?
Well, I think if you were to ask the average person what is artificial intelligence, they would probably think of something you see in Hollywood movies, so the D1000 Terminator or Eva X, out of Ex Machina or something like that. But that in terms of evolution of artificial intelligence is some way off. That's what we call AGI, or artificial general intelligence. Right now we're still in the machine learning stage where we're teaching machines to recognize patterns, cognition, and sort of learn what humans do. So, and the next stage after AGI, of course, is strong AI, where we have intelligences that are more powerful than humans, but that is probably some decades off. But in banking, I think or fintech, we probably look at two core pieces of the puzzle right now, which is conversational AI, so chatbots leading to smart assistants where you have that interface with the customer and you're trying to automate that as much as possible, and then process-driven AI, where we're looking at things that humans currently do, where we can get efficiency gains by replacing humans, by AIs learning that process. And that in itself is going to be pretty disruptive. Oxford did some research a couple of years ago that showed in the financial services space, about 45 to 50% of those jobs that we have currently in financial services will be replaced by artificial intelligence over the next decade or two.
That's a cheery thought for many people in the audience.
Yeah.
Nicolas?
So what I see is that we are pretty far from the artificial intelligence that is really intelligence, but what we see today is that there are a lot of tasks that can already be automated. Our view at DreamQuark is to help people from the business use artificial intelligence to improve their daily job. So we have made a solution that they can trust and they believe in what our solution is providing. What they do in a bank, insurance company, is basically working on the tasks that they already do, like fraud detection, like advising in wealth management, working on creating more balanced portfolio in asset management. They work also to use this algorithm in order to be better at detecting early on the risk of default of some of the customer. Also improve the customer experience in front. For example, they work to improve the NPS. What they do is that they can identify with our solution people that may leave, so they can identify this 1 year in advance. So they understand also, because it's fully explainable, why these people are leaving, and it helps us then develop some action plan and provide some action to the customer in order to retain them or contact them proactively in order to make sure that they do not leave. So they try really to revamp their business, having a solution that they can use for many use cases, but basically it's taking better decisions with artificial intelligence.
I was listening to one of the earlier panels, unless I misheard him. The Clearbank founder, Nick Ogden, was saying that data that's useful to AI, really useful, isn't yet being collected, I guess, by the banks and the financial institutions. It's not really there. And I guess your algorithms are only as good as the data that's coming in. Would you share that view, or just maybe we started, but we're not anywhere close to where we could be?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of data already available. The way that we work, we go in with a company and we hold these workshops where we get the people in the room who understand the business, and who understand what data is available in the organization. And of course, then you try to match that up. So of course, there's always going to be some business problems where we can imagine solving them with AI, where the data is not available yet. But we've never left the set. We've had hundreds of those sessions, and we've never left there without a list of possible AI projects to work on that weren't longer than what that company would be able to work on in like two or 3 years. So I think we can certainly imagine that over time there's going to be more and more use cases that are opened up by the data collection. But I think there's already plenty, and I think having something like these workshops not only helps you figure out what you can work on now, but they also leave those workshops with kind of a list of data sources that they might need to start collecting to prepare for some of these problems that they can't solve now because they don't have the data available, but they don't want to be in the same position 2 or 3 years later. So let's start collecting now.
Brett?
When you look at some of the stuff that we've already got operationally in terms of AI, it tends to be things where we have humans follow a fairly predictable process, but there's some decision making in that process. And so if you take UBS's trading floor or JP Morgan Chase with handling client requests and things like that, where they're looking through emails and getting an AI or an algorithm to respond in that instance, these are things that humans would have done. And so it's part of it is learning the behavior of the human, watching that, seeing those processes and incorporating that. But the next phase is really where I think we start to incorporate more behavioral elements into AI, where we're trying to anticipate behaviors of customers. Now, while we have some of that data internally, there's other data sources that may add value to that, social media habits, geolocation data, things like that, that banks don't typically collect. So I do think there's an element of the fact that as we get more adventurous with AI, particularly in the interface of the business, we're going to have to look for other sources of data.
Nicolas? So if I was in China or in the US, I would have a different speech, I think. But here in Europe, we have the GDPR coming on, so it will restrict what people will be able to do with data. Also, what I see right now is that basically the data is dispersed within different systems. So there is a first phase of collecting the data within the system that you already have in order to have a full view of the customer with the data you already have. Thinking about having external data, generally it's complicated and you need to trust that data that come from external sources. So my view is really to say, okay, start with the data, even if you have small data or missing data or not really high quality data, we have designed a solution that is really here to help you from that raw data to having models that works. And we do a lot of research on that space because we know that in financial services you cannot do whatever you want. You are restricted, so you need to have better solution.
Brett, I want to actually quote you from something I saw you saying. You said that AI will be more disruptive than the internet, the steam engine, and the personal computer. Last week, Google CEO said it was more profound than electricity or fire. This is getting a bit silly, isn't it?
Well, the interesting aspect of this is if you look at the development of technologies and how they've just, changed industries, and we'll start with the Industrial Revolution.
Quickly.
Yeah.
An abridged version.
No, but like over 200 years. So what happened was steam engine comes along, we have the Luddites and so forth disrupted by this. But you have essentially what happened was the jobs moved out of agriculture and farming into factories. And then when, in the 60s and 70s, when we started developing computing technology, we started automating factories. So jobs moved out of factories into services sector. And now we have artificial intelligence attacking services where humans work. So the question is, what industry are we going to move to? And there's no obvious answer to that. So when you look at the potential for disruption, the futurists that you poll on this, they tend to be in two camps. one camp is AI is going to produce abundance and incredible opportunities. We're not going to have to work if we don't want to, and this is going to be the true promise that mankind has. And the other half is like, it's going to be extremely disruptive. We're going to have massive levels of unemployment that's going to produce massive social unrest, and socialist economies and governments will be placed better than others who aren't ready for that transition. I think what we do know about this is that AI is going to touch many, many different parts of our life as technology becomes more diffuse and integrated. And as that happens, if you're not a business that is based on technologies like artificial intelligence, you'll lose relevance. And that's the case whether you're a bank or a healthcare provider or someone just working in a company, if you can't work within the frame of that technology. So, it's not going to be specific to just developed nations, because developing economies are going to tool up with these technologies pretty quickly as well.
Nicolas?
Right now, we are not there, and I can give you a real prediction on when will we be there, and maybe we won't be there. So I want to lower some expectation, and people are getting really excited at the moment because we have a tendency as humans as prolonging where sometimes it's much harder. So be careful on that. What I see right now is that it's automating a lot of decisions, but still you have some humans that are checking the decision that that this machine are doing. We see also a tendency to have solutions that give back the control on the technology to other humans. So I think that at some point we will have a mix of some people that take complex decisions, and humans have also the intuition that machines don't have. They rely on some data. If you don't give them external data, they cannot necessarily take the right decision because they are missing things, while humans at the moment can make sense of some missing information and still do some really good decisions that machine can't do. So humans are really good. We have a really powerful brain, which is really low consumption compared to data centers. We still need a lot of electricity to make this algorithm work. So where we will be in 50 years, where we will be in 200 years, we may not have artificial intelligence that is intelligent. So this is my view.
Jeremy?
Yeah. So I think that this will be. First, let me say there's a lot of hype around AI. So certainly when people say things like this, that it's the fourth industrial revolution or something, it's there's a bit of me that's like, okay, here we go. But I'm an AI. I have an AI company, so it's good. It's good for business if when people say this stuff. I think that this will be similar, have similar impact to electricity in the personal computer. I think the difference we'll see that impact happen a lot faster. If you think about how long it took electricity to really spread across the world and impact things, and the personal computer, even that journey was a lot faster in terms of how quickly it had impact. I think AI will have the journey for AI to impact the world. Not general AI like the Terminator, but AI, specific AI systems to impact the world. That journey will be a lot faster than those other two.
Okay, it was reported earlier this month, I think it was in the New York Times, that Google is now selling AI capabilities to companies, mainly for imaging, I think, to begin with, and they have to be using Google Cloud at the same time. But you in particular, Jeremy and Nicolas, I mean, you're effectively doing the AI kind of heavy loading, heavy running for companies who don't have the capacity themselves. It would seem on the surface, perhaps, that if Google's just starting with imagery, and for those in Google Cloud, maybe they will move on beyond that to the kind of stuff that you guys do. Do you take the threat of Google kind of stealing your lunch quite seriously, Jeremy?
To take that seriously, Google would have to start to focus on AI, while they talk a lot about it, and any little tiny thing they do with AI makes the New York Times, right? Because they're Google. Let's face it, they're a search engine company, and they sell ads. That's 90-something% of their revenue, and it will be for a long time. So I think they're really good at building AI to sell more ads and make more money. it'll be, I don't see them focusing on AI as a core business, although they might say things like that. So
you're not worried?
So not worried. And if you want to classify a difference between a cat and a dog picture in the Google Cloud, the Google AI stuff is a good choice. If you want to actually impact your business, there's better solutions.
Well, unless you've got a business based solely on differentiating with cats and dogs, but maybe not a good one. Nicholas.
On our side at DreamQuark, we think for financial services, and we take all the constraints that financial services have as our constraint. So this is not something that Google is doing. We also are working on other things that they are not doing, making decisions that are unbiased, for example. So they start to think about this because they figure out that in Europe, if you have GDPR, it may be a threat to the business, but we are really advanced on that thing. And these are things on what we are working at the moment a lot, because we know that these are the problems that you have when you want to deploy AI. So we are doing a solution for financial services, not for other company, and we're committing all our time only for financial services. So we don't see really Google as a competitor. We provide solutions that are also on-premise. They don't. So we don't have the same mindset, I think.
So DreamQuark and DataRobot, not worried. Brett, do you do all your kind of AI stuff in-house? Do you outsource it to guys like these? We have a chatbot capability. We have some behavioral learning engines in terms of payments behavior, geolocation stuff that we've built in. But I want to give you two other examples rather than Moven or gentlemen here, but are good examples of some differentiation and where partnerships are going to be essential. So in conversational AI, you've got organizations like Clink that are doing that natural language processing. Of course, you've got the platform stuff, Siri, Cortana, Alexa with Amazon, which I think will emerge to be general platforms that include services for banking as well. But this is going to be sort of a baseline capability you're going to have as an FI in the future. Can someone ask, what's my account balance, and get an answer to that, or can I afford to go out for dinner tonight? Those sort of basic questions. The other one that's, I think, probably more long-term disruptive, but I wouldn't see Google tackling it anytime soon, is if you take the problem of money laundering in financial services, AML. Right now, we have this convoluted, suspicious transaction reporting process with the central banks around the world, the FATF, the 40 rules, and so forth that we have to adhere to. All of that is ripe for disruption with AI, because AIs will be able to look at monetary flows, identify bad actors, and do a much, much better job of handling or tracking down and limiting money laundering actors than we do currently with the system we have today. But I don't see Google developing that. Having said that, it would probably need regulators around the world to get together and develop that, and it's a skill set that they just don't have right now today. So, there is an opportunity there.
And funnily enough, I was sitting at dinner last night with a chap called Jonathan, whose company escapes me, who's got a startup dealing with money laundering and the like. So, Jonathan, if you're in the audience, come and speak to Brett afterwards. Now, just one other thing. I know you've mentioned talking about the difference between artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence. But you do get people like Elon Musk saying, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. That's a direct quote. Do we need a kind of FDA for artificial intelligence? Do we need to make sure that we don't get to the point where, Arnie or the T1000 or the demons are going to kind of come after us? Not necessarily in fintech, but in general, just within artificial intelligence. Does a regulator need to be created to keep a closer eye on the capabilities, what's going on in AI, and to kind of be prepared for whatever is going to come? Jeremy?
I'll focus on Elon Musk in answering the question. I think it's just really interesting that on one hand he's saying.
Is that just to sell cars that he said?
Yeah,
that, by the way?
yeah.
Okay.
On one hand he's saying AI is going to kill us all. It's going to destroy the world, and we need to regulate it, and it's bad. And at the same time, he's building cars that drive themselves and working on AI. I think he's just trying to distract the world and slow them down while he makes progress on building actual AI. That's my theory with Elon Musk.
I agree.
But in terms of
the need for... But he is building flamethrowers.
He is building flamethrowers. They sold out very well. They sold like hotcakes. What about a kind of FDI an FDA for artificial intelligence?
Yes, certainly some of the regulations that we're already seeing emerge will evolve into some regulatory body, whether it be in Europe or the U.S. or global. These kind of regulations will start to add up, and they'll probably put them together under some body. I don't know what an FDA for AI will do. Once we get to real powerful general AI, I'm not sure what a regulatory body is going to do against something that's 1,000 times smarter and faster than us. So I don't know. It might be, in the end, it might be pointless. But in the meantime, it could be useful in some industries.
If we look at the potential issues that we might face with handing over control to AI, which is where a regulator would play, then the problem is that the laws or rules you have to put in place are no longer laws that you frame in legislation or regulatory policy. They're now code, right? Or they're behaviors learned by these AIs. So as we move closer to artificial general intelligence, we are going to have to encode ethics and empathy, I think, into artificial intelligence so that AIs have empathy for human problems and human behaviors and act in a way that we see as ethical. The problem with encoding empathy and ethics into artificial intelligence is if we tried to get the room full of people here to decide on what is an ethical baseline that we should put into artificial intelligence, we're probably not going to even be able to have agreement in this room, let alone on a global basis. So I think that's where we need regulatory bodies to focus on, creating sort of standards for ethical behavior and empathy that we can encode from an AI perspective.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That was going to be my next question. I'll come to you next, Nicolas, in the sense that obviously that humans have inherent biases. I mean, there have been plenty of stories about financial institutions discriminating against people on the basis of race or sex or age or what have you. What is there to stop these algorithms? What do you guys do specifically to stop your artificial intelligence algorithms, for example, to kind of exclude, make sure that they do not take on the biases of humans in their own models? Because it might be best value for the bank just to not sell a financial product to a French person or to a woman over the age of 50 or whatever.
So this is something that we already tackle and continue to tackle on our side. What we really think and our view on how people will adopt artificial intelligence is they need to believe that what it's doing is right. They need to trust the technology. We are in financial services, so it has to be auditable. And at the end, we have this problem of bias, and this is something that where we spend a lot of time. And we are combined already with our solution, banks, insurance company on that topic. For example, on fraud, there are some people that are on picking some cases for the bad result just because this person is living in some neighborhood. And we can highlight and say, okay, our algorithm has identified this variable. This is not really a right variable that you should use. So you should probably remove this variable. And we can have a view from, I have my raw data, I have my algorithm that has been trained. My algorithm that has been trained provide me some things that they are doing and why they are doing things. People get alerted. They can remove the bias from the algorithm. And at the end, you have a line, what we call a chain of trust, where they can provide to the regulator, okay, we have removed the bias, we have cleaned the data the right way, and we have the capability to explain the decision to the final consumer. So this is the way we tackle it.
Okay, I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds to tell me where, when we come back to the Paris Fintech Forum in 2028, what is fintech going to be doing as a result of artificial intelligence that it's not doing now?
What it's not doing, I think, I don't know. People right now in fintech try a lot to copy bank and provide better experience in a lot of cases. At DreamQuark, we are really a provider for and a partner for financial services. So we work on challenges that people would not tackle on artificial intelligence, for example, on our side. So what we'll be doing, we don't know yet, but things that nobody is doing on artificial intelligence for you as in financial services.
Brett?
At least half of the day-to-day retail banking products that you use will be delivered through conversational AI through a smart assistant, and it will be just integrated from a behavioral perspective into your life. So you won't go to the bank, it'll just be fulfilled through an AI layer.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I think we'll see fintech and banking kind of like merge. The more traditional financial institutions and the modern fintech startups, they'll start to grow towards each other, just kind of by necessity. So I think, by the time in 2028, we're going to see a lot more big players here, not just showing up and to show that they're into technology, but like actually many of them have transformed at least a subset of their business to be more of a tech company. That's my prediction.
Okay, lovely. Well, on that note, I want to thank our panelists, Nicholas Meric, CEO of DreamQuark, Brett King, CEO of Moven, and Jeremy